Dan Barone, and I have been a volunteer for Tifft as well as the Science Museum for about 3.5 years now. I grew up out in Cattaraugus County in a small town called East Otto, and I was surrounded by hills and woods and nature in general. That's probably one of the first things that drew me to this, is having that in my background, being able to come here and take some of what I learned as a kid and bring it here. What I would like for them to know about Tifft is really get a grasp of what, first of all, what a gift it is to the people of Buffalo and to the people of Western New York. This is an amazing place. It brings together history and nature in a way that I've never imagined ever could happen before. Tifft Nature Preserve is right on Lake Erie, and you have that history there and the wildlife and the nature that comes both with the lake and with Tifft. It's really a great joining of amazing things. So I feel like when I'm here, I'm walking in the footsteps of all the history of Buffalo and Western New York. It's amazing how many people come in here and they say they've never been to Tifft before. Especially what's surprising is people that live in the city of Buffalo, and they say, I've never been to Tifft before. What should I do? I've only got this amount of time. I always, first of all, send them out here. This to me is the gem of Tifft, this cattail marsh. I tell them, by walking through the woods, you get the effect of the woods and you hear the songbirds of the woods, but then you enter the marsh and you enter a totally different world. So you've gone through two different types of nature habitats, woodlands and then marshlands. Since I've been here, I've learned so much. When I started working here as a volunteer, I had no idea the breadth of knowledge I was going to gain. And I still have tons and tons to learn. There's a big part of me that really, I believe that winter is my favorite time here. It's very serene, very quiet, and the settling of the snow on the ground, and just a few birds hopping through the snow, seeing some plant life come up through it. If you want to escape what's happening in the city during the winter months, come to Tifft and just take in the serenity of what nature is in the wintertime. Where I get excited about being a greeter here is when people come in and they learn something from me, or if I see kids get excited about nature. A few weeks ago, a mother had brought her kids in, and they didn't want to be there, and you could tell they did not want to be there, and I gave them a scavenger hunt, and they were excited. And when they left, the mother thanked me. She said, I've been trying so hard to get my kids outside, and it wasn't until you inspired them by looking at these animals and looking for these things that they got excited about it. And she says, I just cannot thank you enough for doing that for me. I think a lot of people, they see the rules. No dogs, fishing in only certain areas, no feeding the animals. And they don't understand why. And when I talk to people about that and explain why we don't want dogs or why we don't want fishing out here, they say, oh, well, that makes more sense now. I thought you were just having rules. No, there's a reason for that. We are protecting nature. I've actually had people become regulars based off of conversations that we've had. So they come back and they say, oh, Dan, I remember you. You did this. You pointed this out to us. So they're taking back with them memories of not only what they've seen, but what they've heard and what they've learned from talking to me. And that also excites me. My favorite memory, it's definitely the most vivid. As you know, here at Tifft, we have lots of beavers. For my whole life, I had never seen a beaver. One night we were doing a tour. It was a twilight tour, a full moon tour. And we were coming through here on Heritage Boardwalk, and it was in the dark. And I got around over there to where the beaver lodge is, and I heard a loud splash. So I turned around and I put my flashlight out. There was at least 6 beavers in the water right around the lodge. And then we shined it over, and there was another 10, 15 beavers over on this side. And one of the first things I learned about beavers is what they use their tail is they slap the water to warn other beavers if there's danger. I had never knew that it was that loud because it was a loud splash. They, sure enough, were all scattering when they heard that one splash. And there we were, just watching all the beavers swim around. I'll never forget that night.
I've worked with the society for 5 years in total now. I started out at Tifft Nature Preserve, where we're at right now. I first started out as a camp counselor. We used to run the camps and hang out with the kids in the forest. It was really nice, right? But that wasn't the first time I ever came to Tifft. The first time I ever came to Tifft was a field trip back in maybe 2016, 2015. And it was very, very beautiful. I just remember coming in and just saying, wow, we actually have like a forest in the middle of Buffalo that not many people actually know about. From discovering that kind of beautiful gem there, and then I just kept coming back, and then I eventually got hired one day, and then that's where we're at now. So I had came one time to this Eddie Goldberg training that you guys had at the museum. And then they called me back maybe like in June, and they asked, hey, do you want to be a counselor in the museum, or do you want to be one at Tifft? At the moment I was like, well, which one do I actually really want to do? Both are really, really cool. But then I will never forget it. I believe it was Kimberly at the time, and she said, well, you can either hang out in the museum or you can come to Tifft and you can come fish with us. And I was like, fishing or being in a building? And I was like, all right, well, let's go fishing. And then I was there for the summertime. And then after that, I needed a full-time job throughout the year. So then I went over to the museum, but I never stopped coming back. I still did camps every now and then, and I helped with a few other programs, things like that. For Tifft personally, obviously camps were a big project, right? You're not just there for 8 hours a day with 15, 20 kids just hanging out. I feel like a lot more of that is actually teaching them things about the nature preserve that we do have here. Honestly, just really being a visitor, I feel like that's honestly those are some of my best memories. I'll never forget a day after camp. I literally just walked around the nature preserve, and then literally it was like a deer that was like 3 feet from me. It looked at me and I looked at it, and we just kept walking, but it was just like the sun was shining just right. It was really just like one of those fairy tale movies that you see, and it's like a little deer just walks up to you. I'm like, all right, bro, it was cool. So, you know. In general, Buffalo should know that this place exists. There's a decent population of people who come here and they visit, but it's not always all Buffalonians. A lot of people don't know that this is in their backyard where they can come and experience a true nature preserve, see different types of species of animals, interact with nature in a different way. It's really just kind of getting Tift's name out and Tift's voice out to reach more people so that they can come and step back away from the city life and come into nature preserve, or just be immersed in nature, even if it's temporarily. I feel like that's like the biggest thing that I feel like Buffalo people should know, or should be able to come here or figure out a way that's more accessible to them. And what it means to me to personally work here is really just like to be able to share my knowledge and the things that I know about nature with other people. Because at the end of the day, like, everybody can name a name brand, but not too many people can name a tree, right? I don't know how many people I've told that that's a tulip tree, and they will always remember it's a tulip tree because of the way it's shaped. There's a lot of times where you just are able to share some knowledge, and people are like, they're happy about it. They'll always remember that one thing that you taught and told them. So if I had to introduce someone to Tifft, honestly, I would say, do you want to just come to the forest for the afternoon? Honestly, that's just the most basic way I'll say it, because it's like, they're going to think that we're going on this crazy road trip and then we're going right to our backyard. I would let them know that, hey, it's not just like we're going into the forest for like 20 minutes just to see some things. We're going into an actual nature preserve that is meant to represent how this land should look. You know, you're going to be able to see natural animals and the natural environment for what it should be here in Western New York. If you go to Tifft, honestly, definitely, I would say, it's more my own personal thing, but tree watching, and honestly, just if you like birds are your thing. Bird watching is very, very popular here. But for me personally, it's the trees, the shrubbery, like things like that. We have our painted turtles and our water snakes and our garter snakes. So we were with the campers this day, right? This guy, he was fishing across the water, so like outside of like Tifft. And we're watching him. This man, he slips into the water trying to catch this fish. He fights and grabs the fish out of the water. I tell you not, it's at least a 10-pound carp that's literally sitting in the water right now. He like holds it up, and all the kids just rush over to kind of go see. And I tell you, it was the biggest fish that I've ever seen like fished out of this water. But it was a carp though, so it was obviously, they keep growing until they pretty much die. But I tell you, that was like my favorite memory ever because the kids were so impressed, I was so impressed, and the man was so impressed. It was just like, it was a great day all the way around. And I also say this too, the kids, they often build shelters somewhere in the park, right? We're not gonna say where, but they often do that from time to time. And when out of sticks and bark, one time we were helping them build these shelters, and just remember this shelter being so huge that like 5 kids and myself could fit inside of it. So when I tell you, like, they were working on that shelter for like all summer, it was all summer. So to see that finished picture, those would be my 2 favorite like memories. That's it. It was really fun. If you're feeling like stressed out or like just involved too into the city life, Tifft Nature Preserve is a great way to like get out, take a step back, and actually kind of refocus on yourself. We often spend so much time like working or in school or just doing everything that stresses us out. We don't ever take the time to step back away from it and just do something that is natural and actually healthy for us. So this is a place where you can come and do that, and it's here for you every single day of the year. All you have to do is just take that first step. So
I'm Letty Melito, and I've been volunteering at Tifft in stewardship since 2017. What I love about this place is I spent my entire career sitting behind a desk, and doing stewardship is the complete opposite of that because I'm outside every day. I enjoy being outside, and people are always asking me, do you volunteer through the winter? And I say yes, and they are like, oh my God, outside in the winter. And it turns out that's the best time to volunteer here because you can just dress warmly, unlike if it's a hot, steamy day, you can't really do much about that. It's peaceful here in the winter because there aren't as many visitors. You can get more done. I love the trees. I've been working on restoration projects ever since I started. First we were doing vernal pools, and now we're doing the Mosquito Junction project. Even when I had a broken ankle, I was still working at Tifft in stewardship, cleaning seeds all fall of last year out in my yard because you can't clean seeds in the house without making your husband angry because fluff ends up everywhere, which is not cool. Everything from butterfly weed seeds to dog bane, those both have fluff, to things I can't remember the names of. I mean, so many different kinds of seed. And now I'm actually growing trees and shrubs in my yard, and my husband is quite a team player because he built me a huge enclosure so that the squirrels don't steal the acorns. I kind of drag other people into this. I have a friend that has come to help, and now my husband and I made all the Tifft trail signs over the last 3 years or so. And then recently we made those new garbage corral tote corrals. Zach has a really strong group of volunteers. When I first started volunteering, I was the only volunteer, like regular volunteer. I volunteer every week, which is rare, but I'm retired. And then I actually took on my own project, working on trees. So there was a tree planting project like 10, 12 years ago, and all the shelters are falling apart. And if you don't protect the trees from the deer and the beavers, they would take everything down. Because they're much more interested in the stuff we're planting than the stuff that was already here, because that's all invasive species. So I feel very strongly about protecting the trees that were planted 10 or 12 years ago because we've put 10 or 12 years into them. I mean, you can't get that time back. I'm pretty much here once a week year-round if I'm in town. And honestly, when I'm a little less busy than I am right now, I come out the one full day of stewardship, and I usually try to come a half a day a week just to work on trees. I have always enjoyed being outside. I grew up on the west side of Buffalo though, so I wouldn't call it nature. The first time I came here was for some kind of special event that they had. It was like just before Christmas, and it was like a craft thing where you could bring your kids and they were doing crafts. It wasn't on my radar. I lived in the north towns after I left the west side. I lived mostly in the north towns, and it just literally wasn't on my radar. I didn't even think about coming here. I keep telling friends, hey, if you'd like a private tour of Tifft. So I've done like 3 of them in the last 6 months, I would say. Even people from here, just 2 weeks ago, I brought a friend that I grew up with and his wife. They both lived in Buffalo their entire life and had never been here. So they just couldn't believe that this place existed and how big it was and how nice it was. It's really amazing that more people haven't been here because it's right in the middle of the city. It's really easy to get to. You know, I like to get people to come and volunteer too. There's just so much to do here. Um, you know, even the planting and stuff. Zach's been having some really good groups from various companies coming. Like I said earlier, he has a very strong group of volunteers now that come every week, which is really nice. It's funny because we have a Monday morning group and a Monday afternoon group, and I'm the only person who stays all day. For me, once I'm here, I might as well just stay. The morning group is women similar to my age. There are three of us, and then there's this one young guy that comes too, and it's just funny because it's us in Santiago. But the afternoon group is usually younger people because it's a very different group in the morning and in the afternoon. But all very nice people. So it seems that the people who are volunteering now in stewardship are pretty committed to it. Even just here, there's so many different things that we do. I've done everything from help build a new cart, to collecting of the seed, to helping repair the boardwalk when a tree fell on it. I mean, the majority of the time we're planting things right now to finish up a restoration project, but there's just a lot of other stuff that goes on here. My favorite memory is actually a winter memory. One day I was here, it was 16 degrees, but there was no wind at all. There was just a beautiful blanket of snow on the ground. As we were walking through the preserve, a small flock of cardinals was following us. It was probably 8 male cardinals. I don't remember there being any females, but they were so beautiful against the snow, and like I said, it was perfectly quiet, and the snow absorbed sound too, and they just kept following us as we were, walking along the trails. It was very cool. I really enjoyed making the trail signs and fixing up the old trail signs because I found it very relaxing, and we did probably, oh my God, 150 maybe trail signs, maybe more. So every single trail sign that's here now was either made by my husband and I or refinished by my husband and I. So, I just found it very relaxing, and I walk around here and I see the fruits of our labor, at every trail intersection. So that's enjoyable.